We'll start with infant brain. Together. Infant brain, all space is filled with the fragrance. All Buddha smell it from afar. Auspicious clouds gather everywhere. With utmost sincerity, all Buddhas appear. We pay homage and offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas. We pay homage and offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas. We pay homage and offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas. So, as most of you know, about 2 weeks ago, well, exactly 2 weeks ago today, we went to Venerable's bedside thinking that we were saying goodbye. And fortunately, we've had a few more weeks and probably more to come, and we're really grateful for that. What I've been thinking about, thinking about what would be important to talk about today, something seems very clear, and how to thank our teacher. The best way to thank our teacher, because everybody's wanting to come, everyone's wanting to express their gratitude. We all have so much that we want to say to her. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about a little bit today is I think, the very best way that we can show our thanks, which is putting her teachings into practice. In the Lam Rim Chenmo, it says just that one of the very best things that we can do to show proper reliance on a teacher and to show our thanks is to put the teachings into practice. It says, if you do not practice what you have been taught, all other forms of respect are empty. Prabhanga Rinpoche in Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand says, even if you make vast offerings, filling the whole sky, if you do not practice the Dharma your Lama has taught, it does not sweet him or her. Practicing exactly as instructed is the offering that truly delights the Buddha. And one more that we say every week during our novena practice is we do a contemplation on impermanence. And we reflect that all conditioned phenomena are like a dream, a shadow. All sentient beings will definitely die. All inanimate things will definitely perish. When one realizes this is true, they enter the beginning state of a mind intent upon release. Then we make 4 sublime offerings. Putting Dharma into practice, sublime offering. Generating loving kindness and compassion for friends and enemies. Repaying the kindness of our living teacher by heeding the special instructions given, and offering our virtuous actions for the benefit of all beings. We confess all downfalls and negativities and rejoice in all virtues. We say that every week, and it really stands out to me every week. You know, that is one of the most beneficial things that we can do. And just think of how much we get, you know, how much we've been given over these many years. And how beautiful it would be to see that that work be expressed in every one of us, in our body, speech, and mind. What a sublime offering. Another thing that I was reflecting about is what we've talked about multiple times about how when you're listening to the Dharma, there are 3 ways that it can be, that you can listen to it. One is like, and this is the analogy of the pot. One is where the pot is turned upside down. So the teachings are being shared, but maybe you're not listening, or your mind is closed off or not open to anything new. A vessel with a hole in it, where the teachings are coming in, but they're pouring right out. They're not being retained or practiced or integrated into our life. It's like we never really heard them. They're making some effect, but not a great effect if we're just letting them pour right through. And then a vessel containing poison, which is where we listen to the teachings with the wrong attitude, or if we mix teachings with negative emotions, resentment, you know. And I think there's times when we do all three, and we have to be honest with ourselves. That's been a really good practice for me, too. It's just reflecting on, as I'm hearing the teachings, what is my attitude? Is it receptive and open, or is it, resentful or tired or whatever it is? The negative emotions will conflict with the teaching. And also another way that we can do that is by criticizing our spiritual siblings or reflecting poorly on them. That's another way that you can be a vessel containing poison, because this is part of the triple gem. So, we all have our stories of how we experienced those moments of those being those three vessels, as I said. I remember one day in Dharma study, I was having one of those days where I was feeling kind of antagonistic. These are old things that happen, that come up within us that are probably many lives in the making. I was noticing I was having that. And she had a great way of teaching in a way that where she wasn't calling anyone's name, but you knew exactly who she was talking to. And she said in one that we have to be ready to surrender our mind. I knew this one. If you don't know, she said, or you say you don't know, and then you go to someone to know, but you refuse to do or follow their advice, what's the point? Sometimes it's not a matter of not getting it. It's the matter of not being willing to lay down what we have to lay down. It's like having water everywhere, but you want to go drink. So the humility of being able to say, I don't understand, and I want to know. So it's kind of fun preparing for this, and this might be a little bit of a dialogue with you guys because it's something that we all share, but I was thinking of what are some of the teachings that Venerable has reinforced again and again. If we're going to think about really honoring her by putting the teachings into practice, then what are these things that we've heard over and over again? They must be very important, right? So I listed some. And so how do we honor her and then save ourselves through these teachings and benefit others in the process? And applying them in our everyday life. And that is something that she was reinforced again and again too. So you guys some of them will be very familiar to you. And part of the purpose in today is kind of just talking about how, because these are the questions that we have. We hear the teachings. We can be one of those pots sometimes. Sometimes we can really fully integrate. But so when we fully integrate, how is that expressed? How do we express that teaching in our lives? Can we share ways that we do that with each other so that we know even better how to apply some of these teachings that can feel kind of removed if we don't really look at how to apply them in our daily lives? So one thing that I remembered that she said a lot was, do what you want to do and don't do what you don't want to do. Oftentimes we do the opposite. We do what we, wait, I always get that mixed up.
No, you got it right.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we get an opposite though. We get an opposite and then we get in this weird internal conflicted state, right? Mm-hmm. So often we're berating ourselves for doing something that we don't want to do, but we do it anyway. That's kind of the nature of suffering right then and there. So in order to apply that teaching, what's the first thing we have to do? We have to know what we want. What do we really want? If we want to be in correspondence with the Dharma, we have to look at what does the Dharma say. Usually what we want, if we're here, is to apply the teaching. So what does the Dharma say? We talk about, we reference being in correspondence with the three karmas of body, speech, and mind a lot. I've reflected on that a lot. What does that mean to be in correspondence with the body, speech, and mind? I think it's a lot of this, doing what you say, what you want to do, and which is in correspondence with the teaching. Seeing our mind and just knowing what we are supposed to do. Venerable said this recently, just know what you're supposed to do and do that. But that also changes every day. So this is not a dead, stayed, solid, lasting thing. This is going to change based on the conditions of the moment, based on how we are growing and learning to apply them. So know what you're supposed to do and then do it. Think about how good that feels when you think about that. You feel relief immediately when you think about it. Making that decision, and we've all done that too. We've made a decision, we've committed to something, we followed through, and we feel free. So just that is a lot. There was an essay that we came to be able to read recently, which was written or said by Buddha Master's teacher, actually. It was called the Essay on Experiencing Beneficial Effects. I just want to read a couple of paragraphs from that. It says, if your three karmas do not accord with the teachings of the Buddha Master, then you cannot experience beneficial Dharma effects. That is because the Master, representing the three jewels, instructs you in accordance with the teachings of the Buddha to take the road to the Western Mountain to get a treasure. That's what I was talking about a second ago. Obstinately, you want to go to the Eastern Gorge and jump off the cliff. As a result, you cannot get the jewel in the Western Mountain, and the road to the cliff of the Eastern Gorge leads to your death. In the Dharma practice of the esoteric school, one first practices the Yoga Essence Dharma. That is correspondence of one's three karmas with the teachings of the Buddha Master of is the mother of the myriad dharmas. The mother of the myriad dharmas. In other words, the effects one experiences from any dharma must arise from the three karmas, the body, speech, and mind. If one's three karmas do not correspond with the teachings of the Buddha Master, then one will not experience the slightest effect from practicing the Buddha Dharma. So that just reinforced why she gave us that, that advice so often, doesn't it? Do what you want to do, what's in correspondence, and don't do what you don't want to do. And I'm just going to, allow for anybody that has anything to say as we go through these to feel free. And if there's a way that you have recognized, practiced, or found beneficial an aspect of putting that into practice, you're welcome to share.
I better not say anything.
You better not say anything. Okay. Well, it's an aspiration. We're all.
I've been doing what I want to do my whole life. In a lot of trouble. No, but it's landed me here. This is important.
Mm-hmm.
I think to myself, I've been doing that since junior high. I got left back in seventh grade.
Mm. So doing what you want to do that's maybe not virtuous.
I mean, I was 13, I didn't know any better, but in a way it wasn't virtuous, but in a way it was to say, I need more reason than to just do what I'm told without, I took my own path way back then, and I've been doing it ever since. And I would say that's a good thing.
Yeah, these are things that we come to know, and like I was saying a second ago, those things will change very regularly. So we have to reflect on, that's where the Dharma is such a blessing, because it's giving us all that we need to create happiness for ourselves and others. And so over time, when we put it into practice, we begin to trust that because we see the results of that. And that is self-reinforcing.
I usually hear her say, we do what we don't want to do, and we don't do what we want to do
Mm-hmm.
in relation to our spiritual practice. So we know what the teachings say, we can accept it logically, but we can't pull it off. So we end up doing what we don't want to do, which goes against the teachings, and we end up not doing what we want to do, which is what the teaching says. And so it's like we're like kind of in a way against ourselves.
Yeah.
And really having to learn how to go against the grain and know which mind to say yes to and which mind to say no to.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah. Mhm.
An experience that I have dealt with ever since I was introduced to the Dharma is that of the wanting mind. And my wanting mind wants a lot of unskillful and unbeneficial things, you know, for myself, and it can also hurt other people. And over the years of being with Dharma, I've been able to do, like Kadar said, see them as two different things. My striving for awakening, for all of the positive, the kindness, the generosity, the compassion, especially in the face of things that are so triggering and unjust and really bring up that hateful, judgmental aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to begin with, it was all part of one thing. It was a muddy soup. But as the Dharma has come to work on me, I've been able to separate those two, and there's a very different energetic to the wanting mind when it's not beneficial or useful. And so I found a little trick that's been quite helpful for me. And if anyone else finds it useful, I welcome you to use it. And that is to name that wanting mind, separate him from me. It is not me. It is just the tendencies of samsara as they come to rest here. And so I named it Mara. And I started when I can awaken to my judgmental mind. And now sometimes even before unskillful words come out, I can go, I see you, Mara. And to begin with, it was kind of, but these days it's almost more playful. I can get a chuckle when I can catch Mara before he gets a hold of me. So there's that.
Thank you so much.
If you're in the audience and you speak, use your outside voice. Yeah, outside voice, or because we're trying to pick up on the microphone, we have a lot of people online.
Another one. You can't answer a question that hasn't been asked. You know, so this one, you all remember her saying that a good number of times? I really love that one because I've reflected personally on that a lot too, because for a while I didn't ask a lot of questions, and I was curious about that. What is that? Well, I think a level of pride or a feeling that you know something. So, you have the ability, curiosity, and trust in the future. So answering a question that hasn't been asked once, like if we don't ask the question, then we'll only have what we already have, which is so limited. We don't really realize how limited it is until we start to really learn and open up to what there is to know and what is beyond, you know, even the thinking mind. What is beyond what we can see, what's beyond what we can experience with our five senses, which many of us really just, you know, trust that. So asking the question is very important. So it shows a deepening reliance on the teacher, letting go of attachment to our own mind, and benefiting others because they get to learn from and apply the teachings that one person asked about. You know, one of the most beautiful examples of this that talked about before, is that the Heart Sutra itself would not have been shared if Sari Pudra didn't ask for it from Avatar, and she shared that teaching, the teaching that we spend much time studying and learning from. So just imagine that, as many students and seekers didn't ask the questions, we wouldn't have the spiritual text that we have now that we can learn from. How beautiful is that? So it's really thinking beyond your own self too, when you're asking those questions. What can this serve? How can this benefit? Any other comments about that one? Yeah, Nancy.
I can hear her say, big question, big answer, little question.
Yeah.
No question, no answer.
Yeah.
I also take it the reverse, both are true. That we come here and we get lots of Dharma, and we embed ourselves maybe with it. And so we're very excited maybe. Guess what, Sarah? You can do this, you can do that. And so it's, in some ways, it's somewhat not asking you. Don't offer it. I mean, don't offer it in that way. If they say, what is it like for you? Go ahead and talk. But not that you should. And we're quick to do that in so many ways, not even around Dharma. You know what you should do? You should really do this. That will be better for you. That will be better. There's a image that was given to me, over she's in Halifax actually, of that exact thing, that you're so excited about what you've absorbed and learned, called the wet dog syndrome, and go and you shake it all over.
I love your analogies and visuals. They're always so impressing.
We do that with ourselves too, though. Like, how many times do we write something down right when we learn it instead of absorbing it in that moment? Like, if we just really take it in that moment and integrate it, it becomes a part of us. And then it's not something we're carrying around, but it becomes who we are and what we are. So we already do that with ourselves.
Very true.
Yeah, and then we do it with others.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Deep and shallow,
Mm-hmm.
I have,
small.
I have a little comment on it. Kadara, when I first was aware of her being here, I thought to myself, she's pretty young and she's got this robe on. And look how old I am and I've been on the planet longer. And I got to know her, working with her with piano a little bit. And I said to myself, I quickly found out that this person can be my teacher.
Mm.
And I'm very impressed with that, and her study and her ability to convey it. So I can compensate that as well. So I wanted to say the word ego. It was my ego that got me there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, she's a young woman, but an old soul.
Yeah.
Next. Overlook a slight and tolerate a fall.
And tolerate what?
Tolerate a fall. Wow. I mean, that one we can carry into every moment of every day, right? It's so easy to judge, to get mad at, to resent, to resist, to think we're right. You look at the world today, it's pretty much all that we're seeing. If you look at the news, I'm right, you're wrong. Resistance, sport, conflict, social media comment threads. Whoa. I mean, if you want to bring down your frequency, look at those. I've been noticing how this peace walk is affecting people though. Like we're having all this conflict. And at the very same time, there's a lot of interest in these monks who are walking across the United States. It's connecting, it seems, to a part of people that that they know is in themselves. And that they see, I believe, that the way that we're working in the world is not working. It's not right. It's just creating more strife and more suffering. So there's something about this walk that is reminding us of who we are. So overlooking, and I've seen some of the comment threads on, what what is inspiring, and it is peacefulness, you know, the dedication, overlooking a slight and tolerating a fault, that sense, that way. We have thoughts about that particular, that one is very easy to, I do.
So some of you have known me a long time. Some of you have seen me a long time but don't know me. And some of you are very new. This one is a big one. I'll put it. This thing's in there. I could have left this Sangha. I've been hurt. For someone with experiences like me to value and appreciate and allow myself to be vulnerable and feel penetration by someone like Pannavati and the Sangha. I didn't leave. The testament to the Dharma within me is in the fact that I knew the value of accepting that which was painful and overlooking my own ego and laying that down and laying so much down. The benefit of coming back was such a strength and fortitude to me, showed me how much the Dharma had changed me. Because I could have left, but I didn't, and that was, to me, one of the most powerful examples of overlooking what I perceived to be so much life. And coming back, not for more, but because what you said, that which we want to do, we do, and that which we don't want to do, I'm not going to say that it's been like a joyride the past couple of years. But sometimes you gotta look out the F-350 and keep on rolling. And I think that one is a real example. Part of why that practice has meant so much to me about the mother of all sentient beings that we had discussed. But yeah, there's that sometimes just being here and knowing you're still here.
Yeah, there's many levels to this particular one, but I think we can all recognize, living in community, we get the opportunity to do this with each other. Being in marriages or partnerships, we definitely have the opportunity to do that together. I noticed that, you know, the marriages that last, the friendships that last, do this. I've seen, you know, from my own parents, you know, go through periods of time where they would resist each other and fight each other and get irritated with each other. And then there came a time when, as the old adage says, they just stopped sweating the small stuff. And that made a huge difference. If there was no fight and bars involved. Roll all blames into one. Roll all blames into one. There's so many ways that we can look at that, right? Can we take the blame, even if we feel like we are right? You know, that's another area where if you're kind of envisioning what it feels like when you're resisting and saying, and I definitely do this, get defensive or resist and say I'm right or something. That feels awful. But if we can just be like, you're right, my mind is contributing here. I'm causing my own suffering first of all. I'm certainly created some karma somewhere that is bringing this situation to be. I apologize. When we do that, when we look into our own mind, holding on, where we're holding on to our own ego, and the need to be right or something, can we see that that is causing our suffering? The other person might say something, but, okay. Is that really hurting you? It's your thoughts and your experience and your feelings about it that is hurting you. So can we work with our own mind? Bodhicharya Vatara, it says, "O you mind, for countless ages past, have sought the welfare of yourself. Oh, the weariness it has brought upon you, when all you got was sorrow and misery." So when we're seeking the welfare of ourselves, when we are pointing the finger, we are causing our own continued suffering.
This is the second era.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Would you rather be right, or would you rather be happy and at peace?
Mm,
Sometimes it comes down to that.
mhm.
Is that as hard for everybody else as it is for me?
No.
Is it harder for me, right?
No,
Reba.
You know,
I mean,
the funny thing about,
really to
go ahead.
take, I'm sorry, really to take the blame.
Yeah.
Like, you're being a butt, and, no, you're not, I'm sorry. You know, that's what we're supposed to do.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, there's some subtlety here. I mean, and we talk about this a lot in the monastery because it is so subtle and so refined that we have to get, because we have to look at where we're attaching to our own need to be right, where we can concede, we can recognize that have the right, the foundation of right view and understanding of how the events came to be. And if we're really thinking of the other person, there might be some feedback necessary because they might be doing something that is hurting themselves. And we might want to say that, but is that the right time? Is that the right place? In the heat of the moment, probably not. So can you kind of come back and have a conversation? It's not, everything is not. I mean, it's not. You want to take action, you want to take right action, but it's the level of attachment to your own pride and ego that we're really looking at and attached at that level of attachment.
And I think it, depends on the relationship and whether it's a one-off with someone or whether you're a partner with someone or living with someone. And if it's something that could be habitual, then to say, you're sorry, and then you see it happen again and again, when really it needed to be investigated in a kind way, not an accusatory way. And I also think, for my mind, this is when grammar is important. There's one thing, the same sentence. I'm sorry, you were right. I'm sorry, you were right.
Well, I'd like to say something. This is a big topic. We could really, the rest of the day we could be on this. There's a line Clark gave with me once, shows you how wrong a guy can be, which is the way, is subtly of disempowering the situation as opposed to saying, I'm wrong, you're right. In other words, Eckhart Tolle talks about this, that you're right and I'm wrong. The way he says it, like this division, this heavy division. And so if you have a person who's really inflamed on this, and this, I'm right about this, instead of arguing the point and wrong with, just say, well, if you are, then that shows you how wrong I could possibly be. I'm not apologizing to you, I'm not saying, it's like you are right. I'm just saying, if you are right, I guess I could be very wrong, and so it just disempowers the whole thing, And I think that's important, leave it to another day, another time, when it's not so inflamed. Is more of the goal than establishing the right and the wrong between us. If you're a friend that's just really upset about certain topics, I don't talk about that topic with friends. Whatever it might be, to be able to let it fall. If that's simply you want to go with it, instead of saying, I apologize, I was wrong. That's hard to eat. I can't eat on now. Yeah, so, yeah.
Giovanni has his hand raised.
Oh, yes, Giovanni.
Hey, I think also for me, one of the challenges that I've always had is just not
Hold on,
knowing.
Giovanni, we can't hear you.
Oh, my microphone is on. Hmm.
Okay, please re-begin. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think one of the things for me is a lot of times for me, it's just not knowing how to ask or what to ask. A lot of times it's just because I feel relatively new at times. Um, how to even approach the teacher, especially depending on what's going on. For me, I'm like, I don't want to be an inconvenience. There's a lot of things that are going on. Who do I ask? How do I go about asking this? Will I be looked at as like, oh, they don't really know that much, so we'll just tolerate that question. And I think that goes a lot. So it's always that confusion of not really sure where I stand. That sometimes for me it's difficult to know what question I really, really want to ask to get to where I want to receive the wisdom, to receive it openly in the right way.
Thank you, Giovanni. Again, yeah, just knowing really what we want and how to go about it. Yeah,
Another piece for me is not just knowing what I want and where I want to go. It's knowing really specifically, where am I? Because if I don't know where I am on the path, it doesn't matter how noble my intentions are to get to that goal. I don't know how to get there until I see that little star in the mall that says, you are here.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And, you know, along with knowing where you are comes, sometimes that's where we have to be, well, one, honest and then kind to ourselves. Because this is not, we're talking about development of certain traits, qualities, and skills. Sometimes we can have the idea that we're supposed to be immediately, equivalent with the behavior of bodhisattvas. And, this is gradual. We are coming up against habits that have been developed over, unfathomable amounts of time. So I think that's true, knowing where we are and then being kind to ourselves and as far as where we are and what to go next, where to go.
You have an insight on how to know where we are, or what are the hindrances that are getting in the way of me knowing where I am.
What have you found?
You just told us so.
I think you know.
Oh, I know, so speak out.
Okay. Yeah, as you say that, one thing that immediately comes to mind is my own sense of self. It wants to protect a me, and it won't look. So I think maybe paring away at that sense of self, being willing to feel the uncomfortable. Okay, thank you. That really helps.
Also practice meditation, breathing, and what have you, to get you there.
I think one thing that's helped me in this, I used to, in conflict with a little cheekiness, say, you may be right. But I don't do it that way because I've come to learn through this study that my lens has some opaqueness to it at times. I only know from my perspective where I'm standing in my experience. And I can now really full-heartedly look at something and go, this ego, this me may not be right. You may be right. And I want to know the truth, which is why
That's where the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha are so precious because and difficult sometimes, brutal sometimes, because it's like a mirror. It shows us ourselves. That's where our teachers sometimes, she would show us ourselves, and it was hard sometimes to see. That's how living with Sangha and being with Sangha, we do that for each other. We need it because we only have the little myopic view that we have. And so when we can be that for each other, what a gift that is. Yeah.
So I encourage us all to consider when we find an obstacle that's mind-made. Whether it's I'm not worthy, I don't know how, I'm not sure that this is the right thing, I don't think it'll be received. These are where the stories lead, because that's what gets us into our suffering. Is this place of our own self-talk about this, and to be able to take a moment and step back and say, where's this coming from? And is it true? And that's really the mark of growth, is being able to say, maybe so, but then I get to look at that and work with that. Or not at all. Not at all. And that's just my habitual tendency, surfacing and taking action.
This touches into what you're saying, Soma, but Giovanni asked, does firm faith and trust have anything to do with it, despite what my small mind is saying?
I don't think anything else needs to be said. That was beautiful, Giovanni. I think that is just it. Our small minds take over and control. The mind wants to convince us of certain things. And it's over no matter how old you are, whether it's, 10, 40, 80, we've got lots of layers that want to convince us of what might be true. And for us to be able, it's our responsibility. Yes, we give reflection, sometimes comfortable, sometimes not so comfortable, but to take moments when we think these things to say, is this really true? And what about it was true? Before we step into something. But I think you're right on there, Giovanni.
I'd really like to speak with someone who says, I think for a second. I just put out to my mailing list a 5-minute video from Greg Reese, where he was talking about, the mind having 2 different categories. And category 1 is you instinctively give an answer, like, oh, I have to do this. Oh, I see this and here's my answer. And category 2 is the reflective mind, which he's talking about, where you don't move so fast, you take your time, you look at everything. And let's say going forth are often using fear to make you react in number 1. And the big problem is once you do that, it's hard to get out of it and say, I made the wrong choice, I was fooled. You say. So I guess the lesson would be to not jump so fast, not respond to fear so quickly, or ego, or any of the things that can make you, I remember the difference between wise is better than sound.
Yeah.
And when you ask him a question, they were silent.
Yeah.
And then he would answer it, and so he took the time to use category 2 as best he could in that short time. And that was a lesson that I never forgot him. I think of him all the time.
And I know I've shared this with many of you, but working in the schools, and I was overpowered by teachers wanting to tell me something, to ask me something. And I asked them to count to 3 before saying anything. And it really shifted. It really shifted because our first reaction is like, especially in schools, when I got to go someplace and I got to do something. By the way, as they're going past me, saying something or asking something, I'm like, what? So during the staff meeting, I asked them, did you see it? I think it was probably 5, and you don't have 5 seconds in a school, but we got 3. 1, and not fast, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And there's a space that happens that impacts both people positively. Because a possible technique that might work.
Yeah. And the mind is clear brightness. The true mind. Yeah. The true self. She said clear brightness. Yeah, the mind is not all brightness. Everything else is layers and layers. Keeping down. And Teresa, you were saying, something about not being able to get this or something, or
How hard it is.
but the thing is, I think that's why she would say these things over and over and over and over again, because we need to hear them over and over and over and over again. And to learn how to put them into effect in our daily lives, depending on the situation and circumstance, where we are and who we are at the time, and, what the experience is around. She would sometimes say, do the opposite of what you would initially or want to do, and what you would normally do. Just sometimes that was the shortcut. Just do the exact opposite. So I think about that sometimes. She would talk about, she would do that. She said that she had a tendency to have a greedy kind of temperament. So her way to work with that was to give everything, to the point that we were like, Venerable, you don't have anything. She would still give it, because, and what really helped me one day is I asked her about that, and it was because she was trying to counter that particular quality in herself with extra generosity. So how do we do that? What do we notice in ourselves? If you close down and or shut down when you're upset about something, can you actually step into it instead? Can you open? Can you smile? If you're angry, can you just actually, take the opposite approach? Whoa, that's kind of radical, isn't it? I think one of the cautions is just being wary of those six states that we find ourselves in. Like we're always this way. We always do this. This is our response. Those are the dangerous places. Those are the places that we're clinging, that we're creating more of. We want to create more of that state of mind. We want to create more of that circumstance, because that's what we're doing with every action that we take. We're creating more of that, a like response to that, to the cause and effect yes.
I appreciate that one, because I think that's how I directly into what I said earlier. If my habitual pattern would have been run on top, good, great. But it didn't happen instantaneously, and it wasn't like it took a day, a week, an hour, a month, 2 months, 6 months to come to a place of peace and do the opposite of what I would have done. It took that time, and even though my pause button is not the most evident in my persona, the fact that what you just said, I think, is a beautiful teaching for me of, if you do the opposite of what you normally do, the outcome can be so profoundly beautiful for yourself and others. But give it the time. Don't make that trigger decisions. You do what you always do. Even if you don't say it. You should call me a grasshopper, because I was often saying for things. Very joyful day when you said you're no longer a grasshopper. Which I said, well, Jiminy Cricket, but but that right there. Thank you.
And you guys can get this one. All worldly dharma is Buddha dharma. This is such another really wonderful one to contemplate, because I think we do kind of separate, at least initially, our lives versus the teaching. And how do we really consider them all the time? Because it is there. All the teachings are there in everything that we do. The laws, the principles that we're learning and studying are there in everything that we do. The principles of impermanence. I just looked at my mom yesterday and just realized this particular moment, this is her, but she will never, when she dies, she will never exist again. Like, somehow that just felt really huge to me yesterday. just like we talk about, you know, the water flowing through the river, you'll never pass the same way again, like, all of us, we're momentary. We're so momentary. But at the same time, we identify so strongly with this particular person, you know, this combination of things, and we protect it and fight for it so much, that causes all of our suffering, but it is so temporary. You know, Selma had a retreat on, aging, illness, and death, and she had us blow these bubbles, and for some reason, the bubbles just really made an impact on me. We talk about life, it's like a dream, a bubble, shadow. But we blew the bubbles, and the bubble, I was just marveling how beautiful it was. It was so luminescent. And then it would just be like, and then it was gone, and I kind of grieved the little bubble. But that's kind of what we are. We're just little bubbles. We're so momentary. So being able to look at life like that, it helps so much. Like that's an example of worldly Dharma being Buddha Dharma. I mean, it's really recognizing the finite nature of everything. The fact that our actions create effects, our thoughts create effects, that's something we don't like to think about. We think that that's just private and doesn't really matter. But we're learning that it really does matter. It influences everything that we say, everything that we do. And it has a resonance, it has a, I don't know, it enters the field. It affects people. If we're angry and upset, you know, I've been told that too. And that's been you know, something I'm personally learning. Like, if I'm upset about something, other people can feel it, even if you're trying to keep to yourself. That's injurious, potentially. And so just being able to think about those things, that's carrying worldly, you know, considering Buddha in the world.
It helps me to think of that as when I'm just in that thinking mode and reactive, when I can think of that as spiritual cigar smoke in our atmosphere, boy, that really reins it in, you know, because nothing more obnoxious than that, you know. And then the other thing about the impermanence, once I really touch into that, how impermanent, and I'm kind of in my last chapter now, and that impermanence makes me value this moment and this lifetime to the point where if I can wake up to this gratitude for this opportunity to have had this lifetime and to have had the opportunity to touch the Dharma. And that gratitude brings up waves of happiness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that comes from, and the teachings say that that's the necessary first step, is to recognize the impermanence, and then to recognize that this is a precious opportunity, and it is so short. So really seizing that with gratitude.
Sorry to raise my hand again, but I also just put out, I devoted a whole email to someone sent me Alan Watts talking about dogs and why they come in our lives and how they live in the moment, and they are our teachers. This is exactly what we're talking about here. If they don't have judgment on it and they look at us so closely with their eyes, where they stare at us, and they're actually teaching us to live in the moment with them. And we're stewards for such a short period of time, and they leave us like that bubble, you know. And then I studied Alan Watts when I was 20 years old, and then I went to Wikipedia. It said his influences were Tao teachers, his book I bought at the time, and Epicurus, the Greek philosopher. And so I put that out for everyone, you know, because all three of them point to this concept of understanding our temporary existence and how important it is to live in the moment.
Yeah, and like you said, you know, everything can be our teacher if we look at it that way. You know, every adverse circumstance, every pleasing circumstance can be our teacher. And you're right, animals are great teachers.
Yeah.
Our cats, because they also have
Yeah,
presence and
all sentient beings, even insects, you know, if you look at them close enough and things, you know, you realize we're on this planet together for this temporary moment.
Okay. So we've got like 8, but I've got like 20, but I'm not gonna go through all of them, I promise. One that we were just kind of talking about is just the importance of relying on the Dharma and taking true refuge in the Guru, connecting with the mind stream of the Master. So in order to connect with the mind stream of the Master, we have to do our own noise. I don't think that we necessarily understand how rare and precious it is to be born human and to, you know, come to this path and these teachings, the merit required to do that. I think that's something really beneficial to think about. She reminds us of that a lot. And also faith in our own goodness and Buddha nature. She reminds us of that a lot. She once told me, don't compare its power to our power or lack thereof. They are not equal. What he, in this instance, we're talking about Buddha Master, brings to the union is much greater than our share. His goodness is overwhelmingly superior to our badness, but only if we can receive it in our consciousness. In the end, it comes down to truth versus our own identity view. Are we willing to let go of our identity view? You know, that comes down to that common thing about unworthiness or, you know, not able or not capable or, you know, those kind of things. If we can relinquish that, the rest is right there. But a big kind of insight that deepened into her in the last few weeks was that she talks about her own fearlessness, you know, that's what she offers people is fearlessness. And she said that she recognized that what fearlessness means isn't what she always kind of thought of it as. It's like strength. It means the absence of ego. Without ego, there is true fearlessness. And again, it's not fighting, you know, so easy to kind of try to fight our ego. What are we fighting it with? Ego.
Our ego.
So
My stepdad used to grab my hand. He's like, stop hitting yourself. Like that, stop hitting yourself. That's exactly what that reminds me of.
How about opening your heart and being vulnerable takes great strength?
Another that I'll mention is just that it's been very impactful. It's just the idea of the limitations of our individual view. You know, we've been talking about this. This has been kind of something that we've been a thread throughout this time together today, but considering the limited nature of our view, we talk about differentiation versus non-differentiation, and the mind of a Buddha does not differentiate. It sees all as equal, and that's hard to kind of fathom. And she was helping me understand that when she said that differentiation is going to your individual view. And sometimes there's a need, of course, there's a need to do that. You're narrowing in on one particular person, there's usefulness in that. But being able to expand or release our individual view gives us the opportunity to know things on a more, to access real wisdom and real prajna, and to be able to really benefit about that narrow, limited view. Something about the way she said that really made an impact. Just considering that we're not the center of the world, for crying out loud. You know, our limited point of view is, you know, it's everything to us. So just considering, looking from another point of view. It could even be, you know, just zooming out to, you know, one of you. What is your point of view? If you're in conflict with someone, what is that person's point of view? Looking from another point of view. Buddha Master talked about ear consciousness, the way we hear things, and makes determinations. And he says, that what we hear is 1/10,000th of the content of prajna, which is ultimate wisdom. He taught us to seek wisdom inwardly, not externally, which is where we always default. I think a lot of us is not trusting or getting a chance to accessing the wisdom again. We talked about going to the places that scare us. We talked about if I'm too high, I can be brought low. If I'm too low, I can be built up by the Dharma. And ultimately to bring us to that place where it doesn't matter, high or low. Yeah.
I remember, I think it was prior to even Buddhism when, Venerable became engaged in spiritual, practices, that he said it was a mind regulator and a heart opener.
Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, that's a great one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was, and that was something that was a thread throughout her life.
Mm.
You better put that on the list.
Yeah.
It belongs there.
Mind regulator, heart opener. Whatever.
It's occurring to me that our Dharma talk ought to just be what you're doing. Take a teaching.
You're doing a great job.
I'm gonna end here in a minute. I wanted to say that, and this is a huge one, and this could be a whole nother talk, but we've talked about karma and we're creating our own experience. And this is something that she was pretty much in every Dharma talk, is just the opportunity to recognize the impact that we have in creating our own experience. The more good we do, the more good is created. When we're pointing at other people, we're missing it. It really begins with us. I was thinking about how even when we buy a lottery ticket, we think that is that's the reason why we could win. And that is one reason, because you can't win if you don't play, right? But there's so many other causes that preceded that would. I saw somebody that on the news this morning that had won a house, and they were so amazed. And I was thinking, there are causes for that, though. You know, that you planted in your mind stream that contributed to this, wonderful experience of getting this prize. So just really understanding the effect, the impact of our actions in body, speech, and mind every day. There was another one I was thinking of. Oh, Buddha Master cautions us about horoscopes and that kind of thing. That's kind of a similar thing. There is some there's truth and benefit to it. I think there are causes that are part of that astrological thing, but we put everything on it with not recognizing the impact of cause and effect. And so I think that was a caution that we got a lot, was really recognizing that aspect and not relying wholly on fate or luck or that kind of thing. And Bobby, you talked about teachings and action with Pannavati, and we all learned so much by how the Pannavati lived, not just what he said. And the same is true for Venerable Pannavati. He taught us through actions that generosity consistently, even when people harmed you, he would continue to offer compassion. He would continue to offer teaching. He would never cut anybody off necessarily. He was generous even to people that took advantage of him. He showed us that it was so important to speak the truth, even if it harmed her. She lost students at particular times because of the truth that she was sharing was different than maybe what she had shared before, and people didn't understand the direction she was going or something. she did it anyway because she was truly working to benefit others. So she spoke the truth even when it harmed her. So that is, the things that I feel like this leads us in is just gratitude for these wonderful, wonderful teachings, the modeling. We wouldn't have, we're raising money now to support this space, to continue to live these teachings that we were so fortunate to receive from her, that we can continue to share with each other and support each other to live out. How amazingly beneficial, how fortunate we are to be in this position together. And I'm just personally very grateful to everybody that is here and the Sangha community, and of course, to our teachers and our masters.
Maya, would you like to speak, or let's see. She sent in the group message.
Hi,
I
yes,
think
I
one-
would.
Yes,
Sorry.
please, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry. I couldn't find my hand raising thing at all on my little space. Oh, anyway, here I am. Okay. Thank you. I think one of her greatest teachings is creating Dharma Voci. And the reason why I say that is, sort of connects with karma and causes and conditions and sound and ear consciousness. So, since I was one of the earliest members of Dharma Voci and she started introducing that into our Sangha, it just was, I think, miraculous to all of us that she came to the realization that that's exactly what we needed. So that's what I'm grateful for with her at this moment. There's lots of other things, but no.
Religious.
Thank you all.
Can I say something?
Yes.
So, I think just speaking about gratitude, what the thing for me was patience. That has been just such a such a such an important part of my experience in learning about that, and from a Buddhist perspective, it has really really helped calm my mind and soothe me in many ways, and to have firm faith. Those two things have been really, and generosity. Those are the three things that I continued to return to last year when I really started to um, listen to Venerable, and also, I remember talking with her, and me saying, like, I don't know, how does one ask you to be their teacher? And she never answered the question. She just listened to me and continued to work with me. And it kind of dawned on me. I was like, oh my gosh, I am a student of hers without even realizing I'd fallen into this. But I was ready when my mind was ready to kind of receive that message and to really understand it. So just very appreciative of those things.
Thank you, Stephen.
Another thing she said about, sorry, is small foxes. Another thing she said was the small foxes spoil the vine. Are you gonna share this list with everyone?
Sure.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, and I think it would be nice to, as many of us be venerable, to see what the wisdom is that she shares with us in her laptop. I like to, I remember distinctly, this is probably about 5 years ago, and I was a resident of Heartwood. And, I was leaving to go to Florida or whatever, and she said, oh, wow, I wish you could stay one more month for you to really get, you don't need anyone else. So that's something to explore. And, you know, of course, the dual, you know, the Sangha, but as far as needing someone else for love, financial support, any of those. You know, the other things that we think we need from other people. And it's like, not really some of that. Doesn't mean that you don't have it, just that you don't need it in that right way. Yeah. Well, and in the ways that I was enculturated, you know, too.
What's an offering for our Sangha to our Sangha would be if you're going to put that list down, would be if anyone has something that kind of has resonated with them deeply.
I can't believe you just said that. I've been waiting to say that. That we could do a book, if everybody.
We're going to.
I mean, and also, not necessarily just on Hawaii, but on the deeper others as well. I mean, I think there's so many tidbits that we all receive that are so beneficial that it's time that we, you know, that's an intimacy that are real giving.
We really are working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the collective consciousness.
That's no pay for.
Yeah, I didn't know that. And then you are our marketing.
Okay, everybody, thank you so much. Would anyone like to offer merit today?
We dedicate whatever merit we have done from this period of wondrous love and remembrance. For the benefit of all beings everywhere. May this sense of peace and love and gratitude permeate all spheres of existence. May all be well, safe, and at peace.